really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Try to keep the spitwads in the car, okay? It is a substitute teacher edition. Nobody wants you to throw those my way during the course of the show. I am the guy that sounds like JMV. I don't look like JMV. Thankfully for John's case, that's never been the case, especially now. Different hosts prepare different ways for the show. I guess I should have eaten more cottage cheese to truly get in character on the show today. John gets a well-deserved day off, as established yesterday. The last time I filled in for him, he was going to the meat locker. That was not the case today. Spending some time in Greene County with Ma JMV. He is back tomorrow because I'm sure he's got a road show tomorrow. Hence the reason why he is back tomorrow. But he gets a day off today, and so you are stuck listening to me. Normally, the first guy that takes your telephone calls after a Colts win or a loss. And we're 72-ish hours removed from the game that more than likely determined the fact the Colts won't be playing past January the 5th. Yes, it's possible, but again, I don't see the scenario playing out where the Colts are playing after the regular season finale against Jacksonville. Was out at the Colts complex today, and as basically every show has done, like it does every day during a National Football League calendar, it has been the dominant topic. Maybe now by the middle of the week, that is not the case. We will have one of my good friends, and obviously a voice you know very well on this radio station, and I would consider him one of the foremost experts on the Indianapolis Colts, Kevin Bowen. He'll be joining us at his usual weekly time, 4 o'clock coming up on Wednesday. That would be, today. So he'll be on in about 55 minutes or so. The other guest that I have, there might be some Colts conversation, at least with one of them. There'll be a variety of different styles of conversation with him, because tomorrow is officially his last day. After more than 30 years at WTHR, Dave Calabro's official sayonara is tomorrow. I think kind of his goodbye feature, package, etc., airs tonight during the 6 o'clock news. So we get Dave coming up at 5 o'clock. So we'll talk to Dave coming up a couple hours from now, and we'll talk a little bit of sports with him, but I'm not sure anything of the current variety. We'll span from 1992 on. Even before that, of course, as Dave is a very proud West Sider and Ben Davis alum. So we'll talk with Dave coming up a little bit at 5 o'clock. Kevin Bowen at 4 o'clock. Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Star about all things IU football at 3:30. Scott Agnes about, the Pacers, who have played twice in like the last 10 days. They finally get back at it in Phoenix tomorrow night, and then they're off until Sunday. So this is very rare for any NBA team to have this amount of downtime in the middle of December. What has it meant for the team? And forget the Pelicans win, because that's bingo free space at this point. The game before that against the Sixers, I wouldn't say the Pacers are back, but about every time we're like, Jesus, something has to be done, they'll pull in and you go, okay, are they figuring it out? Well, we'll talk more about that coming up during the 4 o'clock hour of the show. Other than that, it's you and me on the telephone lines at 317-239-1070. Hit me up on Twitter now, at Greg Rakestraw. I may visit the YouTube chat room from time to time during the course of the breaks. Since I'm not doing this every day, I don't have that skill set that John does, where you can almost do it simultaneously. If I did it every day, maybe I would get that back. But since I don't, I almost have to all right, I'll check Twitter messages during a break. I'll check YouTube messages during a break. I think I have the acumen and expertise to deal with, whatever phone callers might throw my way on the program. Other stuff we'll kind of work in throughout the course of the show. You know the drill by now in terms of topics, and you already heard the guests that we're going to talk to and so the things that we are going to talk about on the program today. So from a phone call standpoint, feel free to chime in now if you would like to, because normally when I'm in this seat, because literally I was in this exact same seat as of Sunday evening, normally I'm talking for 30 seconds, Bill Brooks is talking for 30 seconds, and boom, we get telephone callers. Typically not the way that John's show works. Normally there is this 25-minute monologue that he does off the top. I'm pretty good at trying to extend that to about, like, say, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the case may be. But, again, I'll claim substitute teacher privileges. If there's something you want to say about a topic or topic of your choice, I prefer you kept it sports-related, at least to some degree. But the floor can be yours. So, we're going to talk some Pacers. Clearly, we're going to talk some IU football in the next segment of the show. We'll talk Colts because, well, it's the middle of December, and it's kind of what we do around here. And we'll talk great hair. Not mine. JMV has it now. Clearly, Dave Calabro has had it forever. So something you want to talk about. Other than that, feel free, but know that we will get to those topics on the program. Usually, I'm always the high school sports guy. I'm also the soccer guy. So invariably, when I'm on the program, those conversations just simply tend to happen. So we can talk about those things as well. The thing that I think I want to get to more than anything else is talking about the IU football game on Friday night. And sitting back and being more of a consumer, almost wanted to say connoisseur, but knowing that I appear on this show every Tuesday and knowing that I appear on Andy and Kevin's show every Friday morning, do a weekly soccer show. This time of year, do 3 hours of Indianapolis Colts radio every Sunday. You hear the On the Horizon show from time to time. We're back after first of the year. We're back on as of January the 7th. And maybe it's the imprint of the last conversation that I had with Jake in that 4-minute interlude of Query and Company's over. James and I are getting ready for this program. During the NFL season, in an NFL market, and when a team that has been as up and down and as many storylines on and off the field as the Indianapolis Colts have had this year, man, the NFL blots out the sun for anything else. Like, we've talked Indiana football. We've talked Pacers. We talk other things. But, man, it is a heavy diet of Colts. And the reason that is done is because the listener research says that's what you should do. That is the broadest swath that catches everybody. If you go, my God, I wish they would talk more Indiana football, talk about this great story. Well, years of research have said, keep it simple, stupid. Keep talking about the National Football League, especially when you are in a National Football League market. All that being said, kind of like, this is the chance. Because clearly this format has never happened. And Indiana, in the sports talk radio era, has never been worth talking about in football. And the one time that it was so odd and things were so weird because it's in the midst of the COVID pandemic. It's kind of like Danica Patrick winning an IndyCar race in Japan, where part of you wants to go, did it really happen? When Indiana went 6-1, remember, that was a 7-game span. Indiana football was really good and was beating the Wisconsins and Michigans and Penn States of the world when nobody could actually go to the game, and it took place over the span of like 6 weeks. Like the season started like October 19th or 20th. We tried to play the bucket game the weekend before Christmas. They didn't actually have the game. Because I don't know if Purdue could field the team at that point in time. And then they lost in the bowl game, and the next year, El Stinko Foldo. So now we have this amazing statement. And even if you had said this, say, like in the month of August, by the way, when the college football playoff, when the first playoff of larger than 4 teams makes its debut, one of the teams playing in the game will be the Indiana University Hoosiers. You got laughed out of the room. Like everything had been, hey, listen, Kurt Signetti, pretty good pedigree. He's won everywhere he's been. Clearly does not lack in confidence. Hey, maybe they can win enough games to make a bowl game. Because the hope going into the season was, well, the same as the hope for any football coach at IU, especially one in his first year. Hey, man, if they get to 6 wins, even with playing 3 gimmies in the non-conference, hey, that's great. If you win 3 games in the Big Ten in your first season, man, job well done. They won 8. He's the national coach of the year. And seemingly the water cooler conversation, if not the sports talk radio conversation, has been, and I got this from friends, colleagues, etc., kind of the, hey, can Indiana hang with Notre Dame? Absolutely, Indiana can hang with Notre Dame. I know from a history standpoint, like literally the only thing that links these two programs is that by about 3 or 4 miles, the Notre Dame campus is in the state of Indiana. That's about it. They play so infrequently. You obviously know by now the last time it happened was 33 years ago. And yes, I know that Indiana appears on the schedule coming up a few years down the road. But this was not even a scenario where you would go, hey, man, Indiana is going to have to get through Notre Dame to advance in the college football playoff. Not a dream matchup because nobody would have dreamt it. It was not possible. And so if you're a bandwagon IU fan, because Lord knows there are a lot of bandwagon Notre Dame football and IU basketball fans back in the day, that I think has largely been put to bed. Maybe this has rekindled that to some degree. But even if you're a nouveau riche, even if you are, if you're a long-suffering Indiana football fan dating back to Labor Day weekend of this year, that's fine. But if you're somebody that has seen far more losses than wins, and you just simply want to talk about your experience, buddy, I am here for you today. We've got open phone lines this segment. Zach Osterman, about 15 minutes. Open phone lines after that. Great guests will carry the first 2 segments of the 4 o'clock hour. Open phone lines after that. Dave Calabro and his majestic hair. Even on radio, you can see how wonderful Dave's hair is. And I'm trying to figure this out, and maybe this will be like the crux of the conversation. How his brother Kevin, and I think you know by now, Kevin is a phenomenal broadcaster and is a Hall of Fame broadcaster, just like Dave is, and a Hall of Fame person too. They don't have the same hairline, same last name, completely different hairlines. That may be the largest chunk of my conversation with Dave coming up during the 5 o'clock hour. So I got a guest on. Hang back. I'll try to educate, entertain, and inform you. When that's not the case, I'm not as used to this solo flyer thing that John is. So you can help a brother out and call the show, like Shane has done to kick things off at 317-239-1070. Good afternoon, Shane. How we doing?
Not too bad, Rick. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, buddy. What do you have for us?
All right, I got a couple things. One's a Colts question, and one's a IU football question because we got to diversify our
diversify your bonds, as was said in Wu-Tang Financial. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think JMV mentioned something earlier in the week about if you get rid of your GM, you more than likely get rid of your. He
thinks it's a package deal. If you're not going to make a move on one, you're going to make a move on all 3.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously there's 3 games left to go, but let's just hypothetically say Ballard gets the boot. How likely do you think Shane and maybe Anthony goes as well?
So Shane, here's what I would say, and I said this repeatedly on the show on Sunday, that I'm of the opinion that Anthony Richardson has done enough to come back next year. Do I think there was a bit of regression, especially as the game went along on Sunday? Absolutely. There have been times where you have heard me say, hey, listen, he's played better than his numbers would indicate. Now his numbers were about right on Sunday. Started the game house of fire and then torched the barn by the end of it because both those picks were balls that, he shouldn't have thrown. And obviously the A.D. Mitchell play's not on him. But 5 turnovers would be 5 turnovers, and the way that one unfolded, did Anthony have his best game? No. But I also think we are past the point. This is where John and I disagree. Am I ready to commit to Anthony past his rookie contract? Absolutely not. And frankly, you don't have to. There's 3 more years left on that. But I think he is your quarterback next year. And if that puts you in the camp of, all right, if Anthony's your quarterback, then Shane comes back, then Chris comes back, so be it. I could see a scenario if they're going to make a move on somebody, you would think it'd be the general manager. But I am of the opinion, much like the player roster was team run it back last year, that general manager, coach, and quarterback are all back here a season from now. That's the way that I think this is leaning. I could be wrong, Shane. All right, so there's the Colts conversation. Hit me up with IU football.
I appreciate that, Rake. Okay, so IU football, obviously they'd have to get past the treacherous Notre Dame, but let's say they go up there Friday and it's snowing and they get a W. How likely you think that they ride this high and make a real good run towards the national championship?
Let's get this one at a time. If you're Indiana, there is a path there. And if you're good enough to be in the top 12, you will have the opportunity. But at the same time, I was asked, I think it was by John yesterday, where do you see Indiana having an advantage? I'm not sure I see a particular spot where I go, this is where Indiana's going to win the game. But at the same time, it's not like I think there is this overwhelming difference in talent and what Notre Dame has done compared to what Indiana has done. Nor do I think there is this overwhelming difference in schedule compared to whom Notre Dame has beaten versus whom Indiana has beaten. Notre Dame has the advantage of being at home. Notre Dame has the advantage of history. I think this is a one-score game, Shane, most of the way.
Awesome, Rake. Well, I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys Sunday.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate you. Let's get to Jeff's telephone call next at 317-239-1070. There are times, because I give out a different phone number, it's really the same number, but it's a different number that rings to the same line. Like, I almost catch myself, not giving out my cell phone on the air. I'll save that for Jake. Jake does it all the time. I prefer to keep my cell phone to myself. Thankfully, I gave the right number. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hey, good. Thanks, Greg. Just wanted to call in as a longtime suffering IU football fan. And
good.
Super excited. I'll be in the stadium on Friday. Cannot wait. And, treating this as our Rose Bowl is ironic. My wife and I have always said if they ever made it to Pasadena, we'd be there. They finally have a great season, and they don't have any chance of getting to Pasadena. So South Bend will have to do. It'll be a hell of a lot colder, but absolutely can't wait. And wanted to mention, so I actually went to a game in South Bend this year, went and saw IU play at Ohio State, and just wanted to mention Ohio State was the loudest venue I've ever been to in my life. It was incredible. The place was shaking, and IU clearly did not handle that well.
Right.
Notre Dame was nothing like that at all. Nothing against Notre Dame. The history was great. Amazing to be there. It was not a raucous environment. I know this will be a little different in this situation, but I think it sets up nice for IU. I think you're not going to have quite the home field advantage Ohio State did. They're going to dodge the weather a little bit, it looks like. The snow will be in the morning, and I think if they can protect Rourke and run the ball a little bit, they're in really good shape.
I think they can too. And I had a friend of mine point this out to me that, hey, Notre Dame's vaunted pass defense in part looks that way because they played Navy and Army and some mediocre football teams. And you've got a quarterback that, A, is super experienced, B, kid's Canadian. So the stage nor the weather is not going to be that big of a deterrent to him. Again, I think this is a one-score game going in either direction. Jeff, anything else for us?
No, that's it. Can't wait. Go Hoosiers.
Be good, buddy.
I guess there is one
Please,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
Don't forget don't forget your flasks if you're an IU fan. No alcohol sales at Notre Dame.
Which, seems wrong about that. I literally, last time I was on campus, I had like a great old-fashioned at the bar next door. Let me get to Adam's telephone call next, 317-239-1070. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Doing well, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, it's great to hear another caller about the Hoosiers, and he's going to be in the stadium. Very solid fellow Hoosier here. How many fans do you think are going to be in that stadium up there in South Bend on Friday?
80,000 is what the place holds, allegedly. Are you asking for, what the percentage of Indiana fans is going to be?
Yes, sir.
My guess would be 15 to 20% Indiana fans. That is obviously what is driving up the ticket prices. The fact that this is so remarkable for Indiana football, the fact that there is such proximity from one campus to another, and I've spent enough time around the South Bend area to have some knowledge of this. I'm not sure if people from Southern Indiana, like me, people that have lived 3 decades in Central Indiana, also like me, are aware of the foothold that IU has in both Fort Wayne and South Bend. It's not like if you live in the northern half of the state, you're a Purdue fan, or if you live in the southern half of the state, you're an Indiana fan. No, Indiana fans populate the entirety of the state. And so IU being in South Bend is a big stinking deal. And so my guess would be about 1 out of every 5 fans might be an IU fan on Friday.
Yeah, and I would agree. I'll tell you, I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Went to my first game when I was 6 in 1999. My dad went to Notre Dame. My dad's dad went to Notre Dame. So I've been a Notre Dame fan all my life, but I went to IU. My dad also went to IU. My mom went to IU, and I'll be rooting for IU on Friday.
There you go. Adam, appreciate you. Thanks for dialing in. Let me get to Tim's telephone call next, 317-239-1070. Hello, Tim.
Hello, how are you?
Good, buddy.
Good. Hey, from a season ticket holder since '84.
Now, normally I get that phone call on a Sunday Colts postgame show, so I appreciate getting that from the IU perspective, Tim.
That's right, but I just wanted to point out a couple things. One, I wanted to ask you if you thought the bad year from Pittman is due to his injury or AR or a combination of both.
Yes. It could be both those. I'm sorry to let you finish your question, Tim, but yes, I think Pittman has been playing hurt, and if the scenario doesn't exist after this weekend for the Colts to be able to catch the Chargers or be a playoff team, then for the love of God, sit him for the last 2 weeks. We've seen Michael Pittman Jr. long enough to kind of know what he is and what he isn't. From a numbers standpoint, 6 catches, 60 yards, which is kind of what you expect, out of him on a per-game basis. But no, dude has played hurt for a good chunk of the season. He may be healthier now. But yes, there's also simply fewer targets. When you're throwing the ball less and you're not completing as many passes, nobody's numbers are going to look as good. So, Tim, it's frankly a combination of both those two.
Gotcha. And then 2 quick things.
Yep.
I am team run it back for 1 more year.
Okay.
And then I don't know if it's just because I'm the eternal optimist, but to me, the chance of the Colts making the playoffs doesn't seem that far-fetched with the scenario that's out in front of them.
No, basically the Chargers would have to lose to one of the Raiders or the Patriots, right? That's it? Plus the Broncos?
Yes.
Yeah. Man,
win out.
Those last 2 teams, I put no stock in either one of those teams. Tim, thanks for the telephone call. Tell you what, I'm going to sneak in Greg real quick just because his name is Greg, and I think that's cool. Hello, Greg. How are you?
Hey, good, Greg. How are you?
Good. James is like, for the love of God, I finally got somebody that knows the clock, and now I'm going to push the first break, Lake. And James is going to hate me, but Greg, I thought you were worth that risk, buddy.
I know. Quick question, though. Should Notre Dame join a conference? Why are they, poobah? They need to join a conference and get done.
Well, Greg, I would say this, and thanks for the telephone call. You're cutting out there, so I'll let you go on that. I think the fact that they are unable to get a first-round bye might be the rest of college football's way of saying, hey, you're going to be penalized for not kind of playing by the same rules everybody else does. So they're frankly also penalized by the fact, maybe you say they're helped, by the ACC not being very good. So those 5 guaranteed games in the ACC not helping their strength of schedule. You could also say at 11-1, it helped them get to this point. So The Notre Dame brand, the Notre Dame moneymaker, makes money for all involved. It's why they're allowed to do a little bit things differently. But the fact that they could not get a bye in this first round, maybe that is a bit of a penalty or a tax that they are willing to pay. Jimmy, you stay right there. I know who you are, I assume, and I'll get to you at some point in time as soon as I can. We'll take this quick timeout. Zach Osterman will talk more IU football. We're now less than, 54 hours away from the debut of the CFP being an all-in-state affair. Zach talks about it next. It's The Ride without JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, but they were all bad.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A very early Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. Some 7 days out, John, and belated happy birthday to John, turning double nickel on Monday. Takes the day off today to celebrate. He'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure he's got live shows on the road Thursday and Friday, and I'm sure that Gina Galeros and Lindsay Monroe will be a part of that coming up at some point in time, if not both days. Zach Osterman in a minute, but the fact that, sometimes work gets in the way means that Jimmy's hold isn't so stinking bad. It's like 8 minutes. Hello, Jimmy. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm good, buddy. How can I help you, sir?
Hey, I was just kind of wondering, with all the cold stuff and the negativity, at the beginning of the season, we all kind of projected 8-9 wins, and
right.
It looks like we're heading in that direction. I guess I just don't know how our perspectives have changed this much when we're still on course for what we thought we were going to do.
It's a fair question, but I also think that for a lot of folks, the perspective was maybe more of 10-11 wins. The difference this year in 9 wins and 10 wins appears to be the exact same as it was last year, being a playoff spot or not. Maybe it's because it's the caliber of opponent in which the Colts have beaten so far, that it's really been one quality team they've beaten, that being Pittsburgh. It's the fact that I thought beginning of the season that Anthony Richardson had regressed, and he still maybe hasn't progressed the way that we thought. But frankly, Jimmy, the fact that people are upset is what tells me they care. My big concern is we're teetering towards that apathy stage. That's the thing that freaks me out about this, Jimmy.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you for that answer. I just keep hearing all this negative talk, and I'm like, it feels like we're on par. Also, this is a rookie quarterback. I guess, do we usually project? I know he's in his second year, but do we usually
I get you. I get your point completely. Yeah, I get you.
A rookie quarterback to win 10 or 11 games and go to the playoffs.
Right. I said this early in the season, and Jimmy, I'll let you go at this point. Thanks for the telephone call. I appreciate you. I probably put too much stock in watching and learning last year when obviously it had to be on the field learning. And we'll get back to that telephone conversation, not that call. We'll get back to that part of the conversation in the next segment, because for the next 10 minutes or so, frankly, we deserve to talk about it more, and I'm going to do my best to try to do that during the course of today's show. But Indiana football is playing in the college football playoff. Now, that's not a stunning statement. You've seen that trend developing for the better part of the last 5 or 6 weeks. But if you had said when this concept of expanding from 4 teams to 12, that expansion would be enough to get Indiana into the college football playoff, the joke might have been, did you mean 120? No, 12. Indiana's in the best 12 teams in the nation. The guy that's seen every snap so far this year in person is Zach Osterman. He joins us now on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm just amazed that I have you on the show. We're not going to talk Liverpool. We're going to keep it strictly to Indiana football.
Well, they're playing right now, so I'll give you updates as things go along.
If there is a random swear during the interview, I'll have James in the dump button ready to go in case something goes wrong. But just, we say this to coaches, we say this to players, even as a beat writer. Are you taking a moment to think, I'm covering a college football playoff game? My guess would be you didn't have that on your to-do list in 2024 going into the year.
No, I was among those that were a little bit more bullish about this team. I picked them to win 8 games in the regular season, and obviously even I came up, pretty substantially short of what it was capable of. And obviously, I think as the season wore on, you got a firm sense that this is what Indiana was capable of. Indiana wasn't like some of the teams that I think Indiana was getting compared to earlier in the year. You think about your Pitts, your BYUs, teams that were staying undefeated but were kind of living on the knife edge doing it. Indiana was just kind of blowing everybody away. And so you certainly kind of started to embrace the idea that that's what this team was going to be capable of by the time you got to Washington or Michigan State. but it is still a little bit surreal just to kind of consider that. I mean, no matter what happens on Friday night, this is far and away the best season in program history.
I've been asked this question. I have talked about it. You would know this better than me. As you break down this matchup, where does Indiana have an advantage against Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating because like there's a lot of like point counterpoint with a lot of the strengths. I mean, because you've got a really good run defense against a really good run offense, but that run defense hasn't faced a ton of really good run offenses, and even more than that, it's faced a lot of teams that probably had to abandon the run as the game went on because they had to chase Indiana on the scoreboard. You've got a pretty good pass defense at Notre Dame, but it's a pass defense that's faced a lot of sort of run-first teams this season, like Army, Navy, Georgia Tech, or teams, and I'm not trying to be flippant, but like an FSU or a Purdue that just aren't very good offensively in general. You've got just kind of a lot of sort of, I don't know, for lack of something less cliche, a lot of like thrust and parry that it is hard to dissect. I think the big thing for Indiana, more than anything else, is, and we'll see if the weather affects things. We will obviously see if Indiana's improved against the kind of the quality of talent that I think it's going to see at the line of scrimmage defensively on Friday night. But I don't know that Notre Dame has played faced either a quarterback or a passing offense anywhere near as good as what Indiana's is. And I think obviously that gives Indiana a chance to be competitive in this game. But I think that if we're talking about the more optimal outcomes for Indiana, the outcomes that are a little bit more sort of, kind of like, well, what if things just go about as well as could possibly be expected within reason for Indiana? What happens if Indiana, as we've seen Indiana do against some good teams this season, kind of smacks Notre Dame in the mouth early, gets ahead by 10, 14 points, and suddenly Notre Dame, a team that can be really explosive but wants to run the football first and foremost, starts to feel like it's got to do what some of these teams that I was talking about a minute ago had to do this year, and has to kind of go chasing the game a little bit offensively. Suddenly you're asking Riley Leonard to pass the ball a little bit more than he's comfortable with. You're asking a passing game that has not necessarily been as explosive as Notre Dame's ground game has been, to kind of try and keep up. And I'm not saying Indiana's going to win this game running away. I'm just saying I do think Indiana has an offense that is of a quality Notre Dame has not seen this season very often, that could, emphasis on could, kind of get Notre Dame in a position where it suddenly feels like it has to abandon some of its offensive identity, and that's obviously never a good thing.
The lessons learned from Ohio State will be evident where in this game for Curt Cignetti's team?
There's a few places. I mean, if you want to talk about the things Cignetti talks about, he talks a lot about the procedure of what went wrong. He talks about the silent snap count. He talks about, obviously, the special teams mistakes, which Indiana really had not made at all this season up until that game in Columbus, and didn't make it against Purdue either. If anything, part of me wonders if Curt Cignetti faked that punt against Purdue to try and make a point to future opponents that, he had full confidence in his punt game, and he wasn't, don't take them lightly. Don't think you can pick on that as a weakness for Indiana. I do think, no matter what anybody says, I do wonder if there are intangibles that Indiana's almost kind of, whether it's, some sort of we're motivated by the defeat, or, a sense of trying to sort of prove something after Ohio State, whatever it might be. I do wonder if there's a little bit of lingering effect of that. Somebody asked Marcus Freeman on Sunday about the Northern Illinois game, and he said, I'd be lying if I said that doesn't still motivate me. Fear is a powerful motivator. And I do wonder if there is any part of Indiana that, we talk about the second half of that Michigan game, and we talk about that Ohio State game, and the big knock on Indiana this year has been when they have to go up that level in class and they have to go up that level in quality, they're kind of found out. When they play teams that are a little bit better talent-wise, a little bit better depth-wise, they are sort of exposed. Does that motivate Indiana at a level that is able to turn this matchup either against them or maybe even for them? Because, again, I come back to that Marcus Freeman line, which I loved. Fear is a motivator. It's not necessarily a bad thing if Indiana's coming into this game angry about what happened against Ohio State or that second half against Michigan. But I do think in the most basic sense, it is just kind of proving here's another team that's going to have NFL caliber talent in some key spots, maybe tackle, certainly safety, maybe linebacker, a couple other spots on that defense. You struggled against it, against Michigan, against Ohio State. Can you be better here?
Knowing how many seniors and fifth years and grad students are here, such as the nature of transfer portal, Cignetti bringing guys with him, whether it be that played from a James Madison, played in the Sun Belt, et cetera. Since you bring up NFL talent, frankly, it's not the concern of Indiana fans right now. They're thinking about how you beat Notre Dame. But who are the guys on this Indiana team that we have the best chance of seeing play on Sundays a year from now?
I would probably start with the quarterback. I think Curtis Rourke has, as much as any player who, maybe kind of came to Indiana on the idea of proving something, stepping up a level and proving it. I think Rourke has probably improved his profile about as much as anybody. My sense is the NFL has been really impressed with, by and large, the way he has handled the step up. I think, I don't know if it's next year, but I think Elijah Surratt has a potential NFL future. Obviously, Mikael Kamara was a little bit undersized for where the NFL likes its edge rushers, but the flip side is that is very much one of those positions that, they may question your size, but if you go out there and produce, they won't care what your height is or what your weight is. They will just run you out on the field and ask you to go get the quarterback and go get the ball. D'Angelo Pons is probably in a similar position. So, Pons obviously won't be draft eligible next year, and Kamara will have a decision to make because he can come back if he wants to. But I do think there are a handful of guys on this roster that, really have probably because they were willing to kind of bet on themselves and buy into what Cignetti was offering, have probably, I would say, in some cases, substantially improved their draft stock ahead of either whether it's 2025 or maybe in a couple cases 2026 or 2027.
Again, Zach Osterman, Indianapolis Star, all things IU football. Of course, big game Friday night. Called it a big game is an understatement. One of the most massive games in program history. Final thing before we let you go. You're there not as an Indiana fan, but certainly with an Indiana perspective. What do you think the mix percentage-wise will be? Indy fans versus Indiana fans in that cathedral on Friday night?
I would be surprised if it is not. I would be surprised if it's not still pretty heavily Notre Dame, but I don't think you're going to have to look far for pockets of IU fans. There's been a lot of sort of, don't be careful selling your tickets to people from Indianapolis and that kind of thing. I think that underestimates being careful selling your tickets to people from Chicago.
Right. Yes.
There is an enormous IU fan sort of pocket in the Chicagoland area, from the region all the way up through the northern suburbs and the western suburbs. And just anecdotally, I know a lot of those people are trying to get tickets or at least planning on being in town. And let's be fair too, Indiana fans have traveled well pretty much all year. They were even, frankly, audible in the Horseshoe a few weeks ago against Ohio State, at least while that game was competitive. So I suspect you're going to see some pronounced pockets of red. I don't think Notre Dame's going to let it look like it did, for example, a few years ago against Georgia. But I also doubt that Notre Dame is going to be able to just absolutely shut Indiana out of this thing and Indiana fans out of this thing. I think that especially if they can get in the door and then Indiana can have some success early, you may be able to tell that Indiana fans are there in second, third quarter.
All right. How's Liverpool doing?
It's 2-0. Don't really want to win this game. It's a League Cup quarterfinal. Don't really need the extra games. But it's 2-0, and Southampton just fired their manager, so I don't think they're going to lose.
This may be the first and last mention of the League Cup quarterfinals ever on the ride with JMV right there. Thanks, my friend. And again, I know you're not a cheerleader. I know you're not rooting, but it's pretty cool if you get to experience this as well. Enjoy it. I hope you got at least one more game to cover after this one. Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
You got it. Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Star, courtesy of the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Back to your telephone calls next segment. Kevin Bowen at 4, Scott Agnes at 4:30, and the man that, even though he is retiring, can still have the moniker of the best hair in Indianapolis, even if JMV thinks it's now him. That would be Dave Calabro joins us at 5. Your phone calls, your tweets, when we come back, it is The Ride sans JMV. I'm his sound-alike, not his look-alike, Greg Rakestraw. Back in a moment. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Talk about your Psalms. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Now, see, James knows his substitute teacher very well. He knows that I can opine and bridge off of those wrestling rejoins. He and Dykton both can do that. I can tell you that was King of the Ring, June 1996, and that was the origin of Austin 3:16. That was to Freebird Michael Hayes that he was having that conversation with after winning the King of the Ring with stitches and a busted lip from an earlier match that night. That is not why you tune into the show. If it is, well, that's a bonus for you. Anthony's been on hold for 20 minutes. Let's fix that right stinking now. JMV would say something along those lines. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Greg, I didn't know it was you till after I called, but how you doing, buddy?
Exactly. I get that a lot. I am great, my friend. How are you?
So I've got a question and a comment.
Yes,
and if you can answer it while I'm on the line, because I'm no longer next to the radio, or throw me back on hold, I'd appreciate it either way.
We'll leave you on. You're all good, buddy.
My question is, number one, so with the current situation with general manager, head coach, quarterback, I just feel like there's no way that they can just get rid of one, correct?
That is the JMV perspective. You're going to make a move on one, you're making a move on all three. I would think you could do it differently, but that's John's take on the matter.
No, I guess my question would be, could we just do two of the three and make sure that it's not Anthony Richardson before we go? Because, I mean, let's be honest. We've all seen how this season has played out. While I don't think Steichen has been the worst coach in the league, I don't think he's consistently drawn up an offense for Richardson to be as successful as he could be. If you look at Ballard, you go to the talent on the field, you know, he's the one buying the groceries. It's hard to cook with Spam when that's all you got.
Some of us like Spam, by the way. Right, yeah.
And if you're a great chef, you can whip it up. But we've seen Steichen isn't that great chef to whip it up. I mean, you've got Zaire Franklin and these guys that are more worried about how many tackles they have and making the Pro Bowl and arguing with Pat McAfee when, to be honest, Pat's the only reason we're still on the map nationally. If it wasn't for Pat and his 2 hours on ESPN every day, nobody would talk about the Colts unless it was the guy fumbles the football on the 1 yard line. You know what I mean? Like that's and I'm wondering if it's Richardson. Obviously has raw talent. He's big, fast, strong. I'm wondering if maybe a different perspective of leadership for him might garner a different result. That's
sure.
all I'm trying to say.
It's a fair question. Again, I would lean towards everybody will be back. But the person I feel the most definitive about that, Anthony, is Anthony Richardson. And again, it's not just him and the talent he possesses and the fact that he is still 22 years of age, but there's other factors out there as well. One, when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, it allows you to spend money a lot of other places. That money was spent this offseason, and it was done on, yes, guys that are already on the team, but guys that were signed to 2- and 3-year deals, with the idea being that when Anthony gets ready to get to his second contract, you can either go, hey, it's not going to be here, and you wipe the slate clean, or B, if you want to extend him, then a lot of the guys that are currently on the team, you kind of wave bye-bye to, because all of a sudden more money is going to the quarterback position. The other thing out there is this, and this was kind of the water cooler conversation at the Colts complex, because I was out there for practice today. It's not like if the Colts feel like they want to move on now, which I don't think they do, but if the Colts felt like they wanted to move on from at the quarterback position, there's not exactly a lot of great options out there to bring in.
That was my next question. My next question.
Right. It's not a great quarterback draft class. And free agency, do you want Kirk Cousins here?
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Right. That'll be the guy that'll end up here, and it's not going to be.
Right. And frankly, we've lived that. We've lived that cycle. To a lesser degree, we've got that with Joe Flacco. And Anthony, thanks for the phone call, buddy. I appreciate your time. We got to go. I think Anthony Richardson's the quarterback here next year. General manager and head coach, I think they're back too. But if you ask me which one of those three I feel the most firm about, it's the quarterback that I think leads the charge. And again, I think that's the best move for the franchise. Am I willing to commit to Anthony Richardson long term? No, and I don't have to. But do I think he's the quarterback next year? I absolutely do. Kevin Bowen, we'll see if he feels the same way. He joins us next, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James on the ones and twos. John getting a well-deserved day off. Now, he does have a budgeted day off Saturdays for like another week. And then it's back to work, air quotes here. As I am wont to say, I don't exactly dig ditches for a living. I get paid to go to ball games for a living. Life is pretty good. Same with John. He's like yapping into a microphone every day, but he does get a bit of a hiatus this time of year. At some point in time, we need to have a takeover like Christmas song edition. You would think, just for like one night only, the New Year's Eve bash, because time is flying this time of year. We're 7 days from Christmas, which means we are 12 days till my birthday. Write that down. And 13 days until John returns to the B1057 airwaves for, I don't think Dick Clark's estate will sue me, his version of Rockin' New Year's Eve, coming up on December the 31st and the takeover. From one fan colleague to another on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, it is Kevin Bowen, who is not eastbound and down, but northbound and up at some point in time on Friday, because he is going to IU in Notre Dame. As you go, are you going as a working member of the media or simply a fan?
Frank, I'm going as a fan. Great to hear your voice. I've seen you about 9 different times today, so you know it's a great day when that happens.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
I will be going as a fan. So you have seen, you are one of the very few people I've ever sat next to at a Notre Dame sporting event that's not related to me directly. So I tried to behave as best I could last year in a Notre Dame basketball game. I cannot promise the same in a Notre Dame college football playoff game. Cannot wait. Ready to be bundled up and my fandom will be on full display coming up at about 8 o'clock on Friday.
So IU fans, you should hope for a Citadel-like performance in the football game on Friday night, because that's the game, I think maybe literally like a year ago today is when we went on that trip. And Kevin wanted to leave at the 8-minute timeout because they were so bad. We left at the 4-minute timeout. I think the final margin was 18. So what is the origin of this Irish fandom for you?
Yeah, so my grandmother's brother, and I know it sounds a little crazy to start off, he was a professor at Notre Dame, and so he instilled into my Uncle Dan some rich Notre Dame fandom. Obviously, my grandma, supportive sister, was also a big fan. And, when I was born on this earth, my brother was 5.5 years old. So, right then I was already probably kind of whatever Ryan Bowen wants or likes, I'm going to follow into those footsteps. So I tweeted out the picture when the college football bracket came out. I rocked Lou Holtz on my chest on kindergarten 1995. So thank you to Grandma. Thank you to Uncle Dan. Thank you to Uncle John, who I never met, the professor, but Ryan Bowen's certainly a huge influence on that as well. So, yeah, a lot of Notre Dame fandom instilled in me at a very, very young age, and that's why I'm still a psychotic fan here now at the age of 35.
All right, so Notre Dame, where you're a fan of, your diploma reads what academic institution?
In Bloomington,
yes,
Indiana
yes.
University. Yes, I was denied. I applied 5 places, Rick. I applied to Notre Dame, Missouri, Ball State, Butler, and IU. Denied from one. That would be Notre Dame. I joked, and I know my mom has it probably somewhere. We joked about framing the acceptance letter. I guess
the rejection letter is what you got, brother. I'm sorry to tell you, that's what you got.
Well, and that's probably why I didn't get into Notre Dame, the fact that I can't even describe the exact letter. So, yeah, I don't know if that could have been a scene from Rudy or not, but that was the rejection letter I got in the spring of 2008, or the winter of 2008.
Better T-shirt, Catholics versus cigarettes, or Rudy would have started in Bloomington?
Yeah, those are both really good, right? Really good. I have laughed at the Kurt Signetti memes all season long. I have laughed at a, touchdown Jesus is making the IU.
I've seen that one, yes.
Arm, sort of movement there. So I have laughed at that. I thought Rudy would have started, Rudy is offsides is the most popular one, or Rudy was offsides. I thought Rudy would have started at IU. I thought that was pretty funny, to be honest with you. I even think some IU fans should laugh at that. But the best one I've seen is Rudy would have started at JMU and then become an all Big Ten player at IU, which is like, I feel like that's a really good one as well. It's a compliment to Kurt Signetti, of course, on that end. So, yes, many great shirts for this one. Unfortunately, I think a lot of layers will probably cover those up on Friday night.
Since I just kind of, parachute in and focus on this for like 3 hours and 3 minutes, because start prepping at like 2:57 through the show here at 3 o'clock. Did anybody have Angelo Pizzo, David Anspaugh, or Chelsea Ross on any of the fan programs? I realize that Hoosiers not about the Indiana Hoosiers, but that's kind of as good of a bond as we have between these two schools, between the film writers and the one star that was in both Hoosiers and Rudy. Did any of those people make an appearance on radio programs this week?
So I actually jotted down Pizzo and Anspaugh certainly on the list. I thought about it. And, with your Southside ties, Rake, who I would love to talk to, and obviously there's no way his boss would let him grace our airwaves. You certainly have chatted with this man before. Do you have any idea where I'm going with this answer?
No, you've lost me. Who am I forgetting?
I think Kurt Signetti should let Pat Coons make an appearance with you.
There we go.
Today, for those unfamiliar, Patrick, of course, played at Notre Dame, high energy through the roof, and now currently is the defensive line coach down there in Bloomington. So, yeah, that was another angle. I really enjoyed he'll be on the call coming up Friday night. We had Sean McDonough on to close out the show today, and first of all, I think Sean McDonough is outstanding.
Yep, agreed.
As a play-by-player. But just to hear, someone as accomplished of a resume that he has, Rake, and to, listen to his genuine joy about getting to call this game Friday. I mean, we're talking about a Boston dude that, went to Syracuse. It's not like he's got in-state ties like you or I, Ray. I just that was fun to hear. I think we enjoy when Mike Tirico makes an appearance in May and loves talking about the Indy 500. And I love to hear Sean McDonough and just that genuine joy that he brought with us today.
So are there any, silent fist pumps if Indiana does something well? Is there, a golf clap, like you just striped one 320 off the tee, you give them the polite clap? Or is there, the Joey Tribbiani head nod of acknowledgement if Indiana does something well against your Fighting Irish? Or are they dead to you for 3.5 hours on Friday night?
Right, they are dead to me. They are dead to me. I have zero fan fibers in this body that could cheer for anyone other than Notre Dame on a football or basketball court or field during that duration of play. Potentially, if a kid of mine would go up against the university, that would probably challenge it in a significant way. But, yeah, none. I've used the analogy before. It's probably a poor one. I've maybe even said it to you. But I got room in my heart for one woman. That is my lovely wife. I have room in my heart for one team, and that is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So Indiana University has been wonderful to me. 4 years, outstanding. Very grateful to be doing year 6 as an adjunct professor. I mean, hell, I could call Kurt Signetti a coworker of mine. I guess if I wanted to. I think his key card probably works a little differently than mine. But nonetheless, it is all about the blue, gold, green, and sounds like maybe even black coming up Friday night at the Irish.
So not only is he rooting against his alma mater, he's rooting against his own paycheck. Kevin Bowen joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Greg Rakestraw in for JMV.
I'm not listening to this interview.
I was going to say, this sounds like the very Rakestraw story of Mrs. Rakestraw's husband works for the Colts. Ask her favorite NFL team. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. So I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand completely, kind of what you're dealing with. All right, to the actual game itself. I know whom you are rooting for. What do you think the difference is in this game? What's going to separate one team from the other?
Yeah, I mean, if you put Mother Nature to the side, I think for Notre Dame, it's the health of Jeremiah Love and Howard Cross. For those unfamiliar with Notre Dame, Love is an outstanding running back. I mean, really one of the more electric players Notre Dame has certainly had in my lifetime. I get that Rocket would have a strong argument against that. Howard Cross plays defensive tackle, very disruptive there. I think that combination of him and Riley Mills could be, a big advantage for Notre Dame on paper. But again, both those guys, Love got banged up against USC. Cross hasn't played in about a month and a half. So just how healthy and effective they are, I think, is a big storyline. And then for Notre Dame, I think it's easily the most balanced, well-coached team they've faced all year. Sure, you could point to whatever. Navy runs it great. Army runs it great. USC throws it great. Louisville throws it great. But I just think the balance of Indiana and just their coaching staff in general provides quite the challenge. So I would start there for a couple storylines. And then, can Indiana make Riley Leonard deliver with his right arm? I think teams have tried to do that, and Riley Leonard has been very mixed in those results, particularly late in games. I mean, he threw a terrible pitch against USC that could have easily cost them there late in that game. And last thing I'll add, too, is Notre Dame's got a kicking issue. They haven't made a field goal in, I think, 2 months. They missed a 27-yarder against USC in perfect weather. So their field goal kicker, who kicked very well in the opener against A&M, he got hurt and has just never gotten back to whatever he was at the start of the year. So field goals and inclement weather, not to mention field goals with questionable kicking, I think could certainly favor IU in this one.
All right. Let's go back to our shared time together, not just passing in the hallways here at the radio or the Emmis building, now working for Radio 1 before the show started. But let's chat up. We were at the Colts complex together today. What did we learn in hearing from Shane Steichen, Ryan Kelly, Zaire Franklin, Anthony Richardson, etc.? What did we learn about the Indianapolis Colts on this Wednesday afternoon?
Well, here locally, obviously the name Juju Brents rings a bell to a lot of people. So the fact that he is back to practice
Agreed.
in any capacity is important. I mean, I don't want to add it up, but, I mean, he's missed, I think he's played in 10 of 31 NFL games. And then if you did the math off of that with practice time, I mean, he's missed over 60, 70 practices in his NFL career. So, again, just him on the field, period, is important. He hasn't been out there for 3 months, so I'm not acting like he's going to all of a sudden suit up on Sunday. But, if he could finish the year with 9 practices and 2 games played, that would be great for him and just so needed. Because I think when he has been on the field, I do feel like you've seen a flash or two. It's just you can't say with strong conviction that, year 3 for him, you can, write him in on any sort of depth chart. So I'll start there, just that storyline. Obviously, I don't know how much people really care about the Titans, but, it does sound like it'll be Mason Rudolph over Will Levis. I don't think it's slam dunk the Colts win this game, which I don't think I would have said to you this time last week. But I just worry about how much that took out of the Colts last week. I also think Tennessee's got a little bit left in them that maybe the Giants or Jags don't necessarily have. And it does sound like no Alec Pierce. And I know that at times the Alec Pierce stat line I don't think shows you what teams have to at least account for with him in the lineup. With him out of the lineup in all likelihood coming up on Sunday, does that create all of a sudden an extra body paying attention to Richardson and Taylor and things like that? So those are probably a couple takeaways that I had today.
I want to get back to kind of what you alluded to in terms of the atmosphere at Lucas Oil on Sunday Matter Moments, but in hearing Zaire Franklin and Ryan Kelly both talk at the podium compared to kind of talking to players in the locker room, and I've noted this over the last couple of years, obviously Ryan Kelly has been through a lot, and I'm not talking about being a football player. He has been through a lot. I enjoy hearing Ryan Kelly speak. I'm not sure. I don't think he's back with the team next year. I think he's either playing elsewhere or not playing in the National Football League at all. But you can kind of tell that's a man that's been through some things and has quite a perspective. I enjoy just hearing him speak on subjects. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. Whenever it is over for Ryan Kelly or whether it's just over here and, like you said, moves on to another team, I will miss his candor in a variety of topics. I think he's been a good sounding board through, again, multiple regimes and certainly multiple quarterbacks. And obviously, like you said, he's been through a ton off the field. I think what him and Emma have done for our community, I think, is outstanding as well. So I think they've done a lot on that end. So I think that should probably be pointed out. But, yeah, I think when Tanner Bortolini was drafted last April, Rake, I don't think it took, some, crazy math to kind of add it up and realize, okay, this could very well be it for Ryan Kelly. And, there is probably part of me of, if I was going to create a roster-building blueprint, I don't know if drafting a center 18th overall and investing the amount of money they have invested into Ryan Kelly is necessarily the best route. I think it's more of, hey, here's Bortolini in the 4th round, a middle-round pick. That's a little bit more of kind of where you would go, and that's probably more of a Chris Ballard thing than related to Ryan Kelly. But, that's another question that you have here down the stretch of, is this it for Ryan Kelly in a Colts uniform? Is it for EJ Speed and Julian Blackman and, Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Granson, some of these other free agents, because if they do run it back with the powers that be, there's part of me that's like, oh, they'll just bring back all those players. That's what Chris Ballard, always does. But, is there a mandate from above that says, no, we know how you've typically operated. We'll give you a chance to change that, to operate in a different manner. You can still make decisions, but, do it differently. Does that all of a sudden lead to some familiar faces we're used to no longer being here?
I think there is little doubt the most electric football game you are going to will be Friday night and not Sunday afternoon. Our buddy Jim in Southern California asks, by the way, what is the beverage of choice to try to keep you remotely warm in 15-degree wind chills on Friday night? What will you be consuming during the game?
Yeah, it's going to have to be some sort of dark liquid. I know I've reached out to you before about this because, right now, I would say my voice this week has kind of been 60%. I've had kind of a moment or two in the morning show where I'm like, oh boy, is it gone? And so there is part of me that's like, well, I still need to do I need to do TV on Sunday, and then I do need to do a show on Monday before Christmas comes. So I'm like, all right, can I get the deadly combo of bourbon is good for my nerves Friday night, and it also could be good for my voice? Have you been a bourbon heals voice before, or is that just an urban myth?
I am bourbon heals the soul. I don't care what it does to my voice. It hasn't hurt my voice. Currently, I am on not right now, but I am now, I'm, in the lame social life that I lead. I have my uppers and downers. And by uppers, Starbucks. And by downers, bourbon. So normally, if I don't have to get up like I played tennis at 7 this morning, it was not a bourbon night last night. I do not have such an avid activity before the sun comes up tomorrow. So you damn well better believe I'm having a pour of Four Roses tonight. I actually have the Colts Moondrops bourbon at home that I, of course, took with me from the last social function you and I were at together, the Colts media dinner a week or two ago. I haven't cracked that open yet because I only like to open like one bottle of bourbon at a time and then finish it. So Four Roses this evening. So Four Roses, Woodford, bourbon will never do you wrong. I don't know if it helps your voice. It's going to help Kevin Bowen out. That's all.
Four Roses sounds. I'll say I actually did crack open the Moondrops the other night very well. I did exactly what it needed to do. Have you I mean, gosh, you have pipes from God. Have you ever been like a tea, honey,
No.
Any of that?
No. The only couple of things that I do to try to maintain vocal quality, and then I go to a lot of concerts, I never scream at a concert. Never. Don't strain the voice without being paid for it. And the other one is I don't eat popcorn. I'm afraid of it getting stuck in the back of my throat, back of my teeth, having to hock it out during the course of the broadcast. That's it. Simple as that.
Boy, never even thought about the popcorn. Yeah, the whole screaming on Friday night, that will be an issue. Because last year I went to the Ohio State game and then obviously did the show on Monday, and oh man, I mean, I sounded miserable. And this time of year, the voice just naturally goes a little bit, I feel quicker for me than it does, during the summer months. So yeah, I probably should watch that. But yeah, some Four Roses, minimal screaming. That's probably a ideal recipe for me on Friday night.
And I can tell you, the old-fashioned from the bar next to the stadium was phenomenal. We're making an appearance there when we go back for hoops in January. All right, I hate to kind of end on a downer and not the bourbon type of downer, but if you go from the high of the atmosphere and attitude and ambiance of Friday night college football playoff in South Bend to Colts and Titans on Sunday afternoon, what sort of crowd, what sort of atmosphere? Because, again, let's face it, the joint's been jumping not because of Colts fans. The joint's been jumping because of Lions fans and Steelers fans and Bears fans and Bills fans, and we won't get that the last 2 weeks of the season. What does Sunday afternoon look like at Lucas Oil Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, the loudest cheer last time we were in Lucas Oil Stadium was for Jared Goff, and when they announced Dan Skipper as tackle eligible for Colts Lions. So it'll be a little different. Yeah, I saw the cheapest ticket. I think secondary market was like $20-ish, $30. So that obviously looks different than Lions, Bills, et cetera, like you mentioned. I think the Boo Birds will be quick. I think if you do struggle, they will be quick. Last year, if they win 3 in a row to end this year, I just think 9-8 is so much different than it was last year.
Yep, agreed.
I don't think you can compare the two. You've been eliminated from the division with 3 weeks to go. I mean, you're staring at no home playoff game for the 10th straight year, which is just astonishing. And if I'm Jim Irsay, and either I care about that or care about the financial implications of that not happening in my building, that would matter a whole lot to me. So, yeah, Rick, I mean, for those that are in there, I mean, I think it's more of a venomous feel to their football team right now, which hasn't always been the case, even when they have had seasons that maybe it looks like the playoffs are unlikely at this point. We did a Twitter poll earlier in the week on our show of, do you want to make the playoffs, no change, or miss the playoffs, and there will be change.
Right.
And that poll hovered right around 90% of miss the playoffs and change.
Right.
And I don't think in years past it would have been at that level of a 9-1 sort of ratio there. So, yeah, I think, and you can attest to it probably with the calls you field every Sunday. I just think there is an enough is enough feeling from the fan base right now, and I think we'll probably feel some of that with mixed reactions from the fans coming up on Sunday.
You're worried about your voice. I've made you go on for 20 minutes. Enough is enough. Rest up. Enjoy the show tomorrow. Enjoy South Bend on Friday. I'll talk to you Friday morning. I will see you at the stadium on Sunday. Thanks, my friend.
Great seeing you so much today. Cannot wait for our trip up to South Bend in a few weeks. And yes, I will talk to you on Friday.
You got it. Kevin Bowen on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. The wake-up call with KB and Andy. I think I have to drop a Sweebo reference, given who I'm filling in for today. Morning 7 till 10 on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. From one friend to another, but we touched on IU and Notre Dame. Colts in this segment. Next segment will be Pacers. Oh, yeah, the Pacers. And it's not an anti-Pacers thing. We haven't talked much Pacers, although obviously it has not been what we expected it would be to start the season. It's just been the fact that they haven't been playing. They get the we didn't make the NBA Cup break, and then they get another break before a West Coast trip. And after playing one game, they then sit for 3 days. So they play Phoenix tomorrow night, I believe, pregame coverage at 8:30. On your home for the Pacers, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And because, for whatever reason, the scheduling gods think the Pacers and Colts should play at the exact same time, I have seen more of Eddie Garrison and Pat Boylan and Eddie White over the last few weeks than I have in a long darn time. Because when we're operating simultaneously, I'll be sitting right here. When the Pacers are on the road, Pat Boylan is just around the corner. And I have to make sure that I keep the language PG-13 in the hallway because I am known to drop a universal adjective off a microphone or two. And I nearly dropped an F-bomb on 93.5 and 107.5 one day. Well, I can go, hey, how are you blankety-blanks doing? Realizing, oh, Pat's talking right now. I should run away before they find me. Thankfully, I stopped, and nobody was harmed, and the FCC was not alerted. So Pacers back tomorrow night. Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files, joins us next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, there are certain rejoiners on this show that are very much John-centric. James, what do you think the chances are that John has any idea whose voice that was that played on that rejoiner?
I would say probably next to none.
0% that he knows the big bad booty daddy, Scott Steiner, Papa Pump Holler If You Hear Me, was the guy that just welcomed us back into the program. But I have heard you play that on the show. In fact, I think you may have played that, the segment that I was on yesterday.
I very well likely did.
All right. See, the stuff that you learn, it won't have any applicable use, but you learn things on the program, well, every day and when I'm filling into. My name is Greg Rakestraw, in for John. He is getting a well-deserved day off. Dave Calabro, the retiring Dave Calabro, joins us at 5 o'clock. Hope you have enjoyed Zach Osterman, Kevin Bowen. You can catch them on the podcast page at 1075thefan.com. And right back to the Andy Moore Automotive Hotline we go. It is Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files. Have you, been taking some time off since the Pacers have been taking some time off?
No, I wish, Rake. We got so much going on. Between you have the Indy Classic I was at on Saturday. You have Fever news popping up now and then with the schedule and Caitlin Clark going in, having her number retired by Iowa. And then, of course, what's going on with the Pacers upcoming as they prepare for this upcoming big road trip.
All right, so with that, I wanted to get to I wouldn't say a Caitlin Clark question, but again, more of a business question. I know the traffic that you got for Caitlin Clark and for the Fever was massive this summer. Mm-hmm. What is that traffic like during the offseason?
Yeah, it's still very similar. A lot of engagement with fans and, always have something to say. And on top of that, you have a big conversation piece, of course, with her in the news as the athlete of the year with Time Magazine. So she certainly has been relevant for all kinds of reasons, and now it's a lot more about basketball. It's about being here in Indianapolis for the off season and getting into a training regimen, which she really had no time for before her first pro season.
No, nobody does. That transition is it's tough for NFL players because they go from playing to training to joining a new team. Now then I want you to take about, 8 months of that out and go from, hey, you're playing the first weekend in April to, hey, you're playing for the Indiana Fever on May 14th. That's not just her. That's any rookie in the WNBA. It is the quickest turn in all of sports. And so I think that's the case for any first-year pro athlete in a major sport. Like your first off season should just be, hey, go get away for a month. Just go give your mind and body a rest. But now you're starting to ramp back up and get ready. So go ahead.
And remember, Rake, hers was even shorter time because she reached the championship game for the second consecutive year.
Right.
So she had about 10 days between that championship game in the draft, which was 5x the viewership of any draft before it, then was able to go home, Greg, for 1 week, then was right here trying to learn her new coaches and a new system in a new city for the first time since moving on from Iowa.
All right, so with that, let's get to talking about the Pacers. This level of break is rare. To have this few of games over really almost a 2-week span is unheard of. Is it beneficial? And if so, how beneficial is it to this group right now?
Yeah, it's significant for a number of reasons. First of all, just general rest, because you're now, 6 weeks? More than that, actually. Here, 7 weeks into the season. And everybody's got bumps and bruises and soreness and ankle sprain or something like that. So you're able to take it a little bit easier, get your mind off basketball for a couple days, whereas the focus turned to the NBA Cup. And tonight is actually it's a rare day where there's 0 NBA games whatsoever. So everybody has the night off in the NBA. Now, they also brought in Thomas Bryant, so a guy that doesn't know the system, doesn't know the coaches or his teammates. That's been huge for him the last couple of days to get in the Ascension St. Vincent Center and get some work in before they go on this road trip. And then on top of that, I think about individuals. Like Andrew Nembhard came back, but he probably wasn't 100%. Tyrese Halliburton, he really hasn't had an off season in 2 years when he was at USA World Cup and then the Olympics. So any kind of rest for Tyrese is significant as well.
What sort of role is Thomas Bryant going to play?
I think an important one because they did not have a backup center on their roster. So right away, that fills an obvious need. And there's certain games, especially when you play, Joel Embiid and the Sixers like they did recently. Any center
including Miles Turner, has a tough time with that matchup. Miles picked up 3 personal fouls in the first half, and it was going worrisome about where you're going to go next, right? Now it turned out Embiid had an unfortunate hit to the face, which was a sinus fracture, but that became a real concern. So I think probably anywhere from 12 to 16 minutes is what you at least ask of him, Greg. But you'll certainly have other nights when you're going to demand a lot more just because of the matchup or what have you. And you're seeing even more teams have length, have athleticism, have all those different factors that, impact the Pacers negatively. And so that's another time when you're going to have to maybe lean on him a little bit more.
All right, other injuries, Nesmith, Shepard, et cetera. Obviously, we know Wiseman done, Jackson done, hence why you brought in a Moses Brown, that eventually bring in a Thomas Bryant. But those other, lingering and more long-term injuries, what's timeline looking like for those guys?
Yeah, let's start with Ben Shepard. He kind of got involved in practice, it sounds like, here this week. I don't think it's an imminent return, but I think he's getting closer. It wouldn't surprise me maybe if after Christmas you see him. They're going right now on a 3-game road trip out west. That would be a good time to kind of help him get reacclimated with the team, start getting his game rhythm, game shape, playing 2-on-2, 3-on-3 with some of the interns who travel, for example. Those are good opportunities. So I think he's close, but not quite ready yet. We don't have an injury report for Thursday's game. Aaron Nesmith, I think you're looking at probably about 2 weeks. Okay. I think that's kind of the target date. Nothing official. Nothing's been announced. But I think that's really what they're eyeing as the first of the year for Aaron Nesmith. And that left foot injury, not exactly an ankle sprain, a little bit more to it. But Ben Shepard's dealing with kind of stuff to the obliques and with his ribs. So that's a complicated one as well.
All right, so you said something that piqued my interest, and I acknowledge the fact that I kind of aged out of this group. But at one point in my life, I was a practice dummy for a women's college basketball team, so I understand this. Mm-hmm. Explain to me interns who travel with the team and get to play with injured player. Explain to me this role.
Yeah, so the Pacers, they've probably been doing this since the Dan Burke days, probably 10 years ago, is the players they bring in, the basketball assistants is their official title. They're interns. They're seasonal assistants. They're all former players, right? So Siakam's brother is part of that group.
As in Christian?
Christian, yeah. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
yep.
Absolutely. And so they bring in former players, and so you have guys and girls. Amy Brooke has done a nice job. She played college ball, is now with the Mad Ants. To bring in players that can compete, especially with the end-of-bench guys or players coming back from injury on maybe days when the team has the day off or they need extra bodies and shoot around or what have you. That's something this team and others have really moved towards, is getting those former college players, integrating them within the team. And then it's great on-the-job experience as some of these progress down the line and become a video coordinator or a G League assistant or a Pacers a development coordinator, for example.
All right, so literally I know what the Pacers' record was. I had not glanced at the standings in some time. So if you had told me 2 months ago, hey, the Pacers are going to be 12-15, I'd be a little freaked out. If you'd say, hey, the Pacers are like 7th or 8th in the standings, I'd go, maybe I could see that. I would have hoped for a little bit better, but I'm not as freaked out about the standings. So how should Pacers fans be feeling right now, Scott?
A little nervous, I think, because of this upcoming schedule. They did have a road-heavy schedule to begin with, but then it did lighten up. They did have a injured and a team in Philadelphia that it just hasn't clicked at all. A lot of with Paul George, a newcomer there, and Embiid's been in and out. New Orleans is the most beat-up team injury-wise. Right. We don't know when Zion's playing. And they've also had some bad losses. You got to take care of a Toronto team, a Brooklyn win. Charlotte, they lost to the other night by 4. You can't afford those losses. So it's kind of been a mixed bag here at the beginning as they've tried to establish what this team looks like as they tried to run it back from last season. I'm not sure that was the greatest idea considering the personnel and the situations that benefited them. But upcoming, I think fans should be curious because they're going to learn a lot more about this team. You're going to get tested in Phoenix, Sacramento, Golden State, twice against Boston, and that's after a home game against OKC. So I think this is a big evaluation time over the next 3 weeks where they're going to be tested, and we're going to really have a better feel for the possibilities of this year's group.
The likelihood of the Pacers feeling they have to make a move would be what? And again, Thomas Bryant's different. That was an injury hardship. You had to go out and get a body and you get injury money basically to do that because you know that neither Wiseman or Jackson are going to play for the rest of the year. But a move, and again, not to punt, but just to go, you know what? The chemistry's not working. The pieces don't fit the way they did. We thought they were going to. We have to make a move to, quote unquote, fix this team. What's the likelihood of that between now and mid-February?
So the number one thing to watch here is the money side of it. This is they're tight from a business standpoint, right? Like I'm talking a couple $100,000 within the luxury tax.
Sure, yeah.
So that severely limits what they have to do. You do have Miles Turner, who before this last week was the only center on the roster, but he's in a contract year, so you have to consider his future, both in terms of do you bring him back? If not, do you try to offload him? Or more realistically, a player like him, you can go over the tax and over the luxury tax rather, and re-sign a guy like Miles because you have your bird rights, and you could continue on with that relationship for another couple years as well. I don't think there's any obvious decisions here. The challenge will be the money standpoint because it would be a poor business decision for them to go into the luxury tax for this group that I don't believe is a contending roster.
Right, to be a 500 team, which we had higher hopes for. And again, it's still early, but as you said, there's some moments of truth that are going to be coming up over the course of these next couple of weeks, and a lot of them, frankly, are going to be away from home. All right, the NBA is completely off tonight, and that's in part because the NBA Cup was last night. Clearly, we were a little biased. We thought the NBA Cup – that's what the Emirates Cup now, I get it. The NBA Cup was cool last year. Well, here locally, not so much because they just didn't play as well. How are we feeling, again, not the Pacers, but as a league, as a whole? How are we feeling about this after year number 2?
It's fine. I don't know. It kind of lacks interest. Right now you're going up against a lot, right? In terms, especially the NFL. We know that's number one. Here locally especially, it's a lot of IU and Notre Dame football as we get set for the game on Friday. I would love for it to continue, but maybe can you push back the Vegas, the semifinals and finals to, say, January when maybe you could find a free weekend there or something? I do like how the players seem to care a little bit more about it. The money resonated with them more than I think anyone anticipated. But I got to believe Adam Silver didn't like the fact that he very much appreciates the overseas, the soccer and how you celebrate multiple championships. And last night you see how after the Bucks got the win, they didn't celebrate. All the beers were sitting there. And nothing was being celebrated, much like I think we all anticipated. Plus, it's a league sponsor. So I think there's ways you can tweak it. I'll be curious, does it go back to Vegas, Greg? Because they were under contract for one more year. Will they try another city? Will they try having that bounce around? Do you send it to Nashville or Orlando or just different cities? I think there's a lot of improvements. I will emphasize they got to update these courts. We got to go back to normal.
Please.
Maybe you have a logo there. That's my biggest issue, Greg, and I'm not kidding. I have turned off NBA Cup games because my eyes hurt, and that's not good. You should give us all the reason to watch, if not more. And these courts, I know they want to emphasize these games are different. These matter differently, but I think too many fans, especially the loyalists, maybe turning off because of the frustrations of let's get back to traditional basketball.
And I am just happy of the fact that someone who is at least 15 years my junior, if not 20, that he's the get off my lawn guy about the court and not me. So good. I'm glad you said that and not me because I feel that way and I'm like, am I turning into that person? No, the young kid on the conversation said that. Good. All right, good. I feel better about that.
I like more basketball conversations, and it seems like, especially at the NBA Cup, what are we talking about?
The floor.
We're talking about the locker room celebration. We're talking about the courts. They got new specialized Wilson basketballs this year. We're not talking about the basketball and who's shining in OKC, making the run to the NBA Cup Finals. That's what I want it to get back to. And I think there's other ways you can do that, including with the uniforms. Like when two teams are wearing dark colors and then it's an awful color court, it just distracts from the product they're trying to demonstrate on the floor.
Welcome to middle age, my friend. You're making a whole lot of sense. Scotty Agnes, Fieldhouse Files. If you've been listening to this station, you'd be following him by now and know of his great work. Thanks for the time, my friend. We'll catch up soon. Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, my friend.
Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files, joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Well, the guest from the heavy lifting on this show for the last hour and a half. We got another great one coming up at 5. But if you got something you want to say, now's the time. Phone lines open, 317-239-1070. Hit me up on Twitter, at Greg Rakestraw. You can, like old school, snail mail the show, too, Greg at 1070thefan.com. Or say something in the YouTube chat room. It just might make the show. Dave Calabro at 5. You after that, and you until then on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Robo, any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Dave Calabro coming up in the next segment of the show. Tonight is his farewell night on Channel 13. I'm not sure if the location for his official Bon Voyage party is public, so there may be an appearance that I make at that tomorrow night, but I'm not sure if I want to kind of give that away on the radio airwaves as well. In case you have missed Scott Agnes, Kevin Bowen, Zach Osterman, all available on the podcast page at 1075thefan.com. A couple of tweets I have been sitting on for about an hour and a half. Let me fix that now. From Matt, I asked JMV this question, assuming Richardson is back. He will be back, by the way. What does his offseason look like? Good question. Going from year 2 to year 3, the biggest thing is you simply want him to be healthy. There's no kind of hitches in the giddy up, no things to concern with other than just, first recovering from a season, as every player should, both mentally and physically. But then 2, it's not like anybody questions the athleticism or the physically being in shape of Anthony Richardson. That's not a concern to me. And so it's just more study, more reps, and then really that's it. Part of the reason why he sat, and obviously it was couched to us as we think Joe Flacco gives us the best chance to win, and then 2 weeks later it became, it's because Anthony wasn't doing some things in terms of off the field, preparation, etc. And again, his play has been better since that time. So it's taking those lessons of, all right, this is what I've got to be doing, game weeks, and getting ready to prepare myself to play during season. Those same lessons have to translate during the course of the offseason as well. So what is the offseason going to look like? Well, probably what it looks like for every NFL quarterback, which is, yes, give yourself some time away. Yes, give yourself a bit of a mental break. Give your body a chance to heal up. But then it's film study. It's repetition. It's throwing with receivers. It's setting a location, whether it is here, whether it's in Florida, California, the moon, where all of you are getting together and training on a regular basis. Now, the team would be here in Indianapolis for April, May, and early June, and then we'll do it again at training camp starting in late July. So that's what the offseason will look like. Pretty mundane and boring, but you would hope that the lesson learned in midseason translates to a lesson learned heading into the offseason as well. Finally, from Heath, up until the IU Notre Dame game on Friday, what was the last really big game that Notre Dame played in? Well, they were in the 2012 BCS championship. That didn't go well against Alabama. They made the college football playoff in both 2018 and 2020. It's not like Notre Dame's been playing in really crappy bowl games or not playing in bowl games. Again, have they been a top 2 or 3 program? No. Have they been a top 4 program? Yeah, a couple times. Are they flirting with that position now every year? Yes, that's what Brian Kelly built and what Marcus Freeman is trying to build on in South Bend. So Notre Dame's had their share of big games, and not just with Joe Montana as the quarterback or Ara Parseghian as the head coach or Lou Holtz as the head coach. Is Notre Dame what it was 50 years ago? No. But is Notre Dame now a routinely top 10 program in the country? Yes, they are. So they do have more of that big game experience than does Indiana. Keep those tweets coming. Keep those telephone calls coming. We'll have time for them next hour at 317-239-1070. You know him. You love him. And after this week, he's retiring. Dave Calabro joins us next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, that quote from Randy Macho Man Savage could have easily described the television greatness the last 32 years in the city of Indianapolis. That was Dave Calabro. He's still great because he's not dead, but he is retiring from television, and his farewell packages, swan song, etc., is tonight on WTHR Channel 13. And he is kind enough to allow a former intern, not of the sports department, but of the news department at Channel 13, to interview him an hour before his swan song airs. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Greg. Good to talk to you. Hey, Randy Macho Man Savage, you just had him on in the intro. I had him live. You just gave me a flashback. He was live on Channel 13 with me, and I asked him a question about wrestling being fake, and I thought he was going to throw me through the freaking ring. He got really pissed. But so anyway, go on. Yeah, brother, we're wrapping it up. 32 years from Channel 13.
I figured there would be some random stories that we would share. I did not think that you interviewing a WWF superstar at the time would be one of them. So give me some context as to why you were interviewing Randy Savage.
That wasn't on the bingo card.
No.
I don't remember. It was a Market Square Arena, some event, slow sports night. Let's do something stupid and different, and one of those deals probably.
All right. My guess would be, because you're not big in touting your own legacy, I'll do that over the next few minutes.
Yeah.
But if there is one thing attributable to you other than that majestic voice and that phenomenal hair, would be Operation Football. So if you will, tell us a story of how you got that off the ground, how you got that started.
Yeah, so when I was in Dayton, Ohio, is where I started my second TV job in the 80s. Had a news director by the name of Dave Roberts, who's now a big shot at ESPN, and he and I were talking about Friday night's got to be different. And I said, well, hell, why don't we start having like the band of the week and have some cheerleaders come in and be on the studio, just have some energy in the evenings and, make it different. And, let's fly the helicopter around and go to some games. And he's like, I love this. He goes, hell, let's call it Operation Football. And so I moved to Channel 13 in 1992, and I had a typewriter and people smoking cigarettes around me in the newsroom, and I typed up this idea of Operation Football and all the, the Spirit Award and, all that stuff. And the general manager looked at me like I was nuts. And in 1993, we were still in like 12th place, and they were like, hey, let's try something different. And so that's when Operation Football started, and man, it took off like wildfire, and here we are all these years later.
There are so many different directions we could go with this, but again, I flash back to my time of working at Channel 13, and I was fortunate enough to be there during the summer of the 1996 Olympics, which meant that as an intern, I was doing more than just taking, satellite feeds and getting coffee. Frankly, I was needed because we had half of our staff, including you, down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So how many different Olympic games did you have a chance to cover at Channel 13?
So that was the beginning of all of our Olympic stuff. I got to cover 7 of them. I've been around the world, but that was the beginning of it all, and that's when I really got my big break. They let me host a half-hour show and kind of threw me into the fire of it all. And I was in the middle of all the, Atlanta Olympic bombing and all of that stuff. So that kind of became my thing, covering the Olympics. And again, I saw all the great events, man. I was there for all those cool things ever since '96. It's been a crazy journey, right? The stories just keep flooding back of all the different things I've gotten to experience and be a part of.
If you had a favorite Olympic moment or favorite Olympic story, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, it's the random things that happen.
Right.
Like I got to basketball practice early, and Kobe and LeBron and KD were warming up, and there was a couple other players. And I got there early because I had taken the buses, and I was the first guy there, and I was sitting on the floor while these guys were warming up, and the ball rolled over, and I started rebounding for those guys. And I rebounded probably for 15 minutes to the point I was kind of sweating, and Kobe Kobe was making fun of me because he saw my little Italian greasy face starting to sweat, and so yeah, that's one of those moments you remember from getting to do stuff like the Olympics. Just the random things like that you remember. Yeah, those are the kind of things that pop in your mind.
All right, you mentioned hosting 30-minute shows, and if you were not in Indianapolis, John will make some references like 35 years ago that just predates me. I have now been here for the last 30 years. So I remember the Jim Harbaugh show. I remember the Reggie Miller show. What was it like to host shows? For those that don't know, at the time, Channel 13 had two studios. The main news studio, and across the hall was the second set, which would often be Dave's Playhouse to host shows like that. What was that environment like, taping that in front of a studio audience?
Oh, it was the best. We did all kinds of crazy stuff with Harbaugh and Reggie Miller. We would have, Dennis Rodman in, Charles Barkley. We would tape something with Michael Jordan. Same with Harbaugh. We always had wild guests. We had Bobby Orr come in because that was Harbaugh's favorite sports figure growing up. That's why he wore number 4. Bobby Orr. We told Harbaugh that Bill Smith was coming in from Wheaties to talk to Harbaugh about being on the cover of Wheaties. So we introduced Harbaugh to his childhood hero, which was really cool.
I was going to say, if you told somebody they're going to be on the Wheaties cover and they weren't, they'd probably be disappointed, unless you replace that person with his childhood idol. Then it was all cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've been all those kind of stories. Just so much fun to be a part of all that and to have a front row seat to history in Indianapolis and being a part of all these different athletes. I got a really nice letter from Peyton Manning the other day talking about how when he came to town and he came home and was watching the 13th sports game after he'd thrown like 5 interceptions, and he was watching the show as I was ripping him with the late great Robin Miller, and just funny stories like that are flooding back.
Understood. I know you've been getting a lot of them through social media, text, whatever the case may be. There is in live television. The best laid plans go up in smoke sometimes. If I said, all right, give me a moment where live television didn't work so well for you, what comes to mind?
Well, we did a bunch of, there's always a slip of the tongue. Like on the Harbaugh show, he had an issue with a disc in his back.
Yeah.
He said he had a slipped disc, but the word disc was a different C word. With a live audience of about 150 people, and everybody just started laughing, and we just kind of had to keep rolling along as I tried to block that out of my brain for the next half hour. You know what I mean? Those kind of things that happen through the years.
You got to stone face that from time to time. What is unique about, again, being from here, it's different. But when there's somebody that's come to the market, and I'll let the cat out of the bag here a little bit. I may have been a little bit of the connective tissue between Dave and Dominic Miranda to kind of help Dom get that opportunity at 13. And one of the pieces of advice I gave him, and I have given others over the years, even if you're from the state of Indiana, but you're not from Indianapolis, I say, learn the IndyCar Series now. Learn the Indy 500 now. You did not have to do that because you were already around the Speedway before you worked for Channel 13. So being able to combine what is your passion, and by the way, folks, something Dave is not giving up. He'll still be wearing a blue shirt in the month of May in terms of being part of the public address staff and, frankly, the lead PA voice for the Indianapolis 500. That is not changing. But no, because you had that knowledge and passion. When you brought that to the table back in 92, what was that like for you to be able to talk about that on a daily basis?
Well, I had applied for a job down the street at Channel 8, and I was told I wasn't ready. And so when I got the opportunity at Channel 13, it became my mission that every day I worked at Channel 13 that I was going to kick Channel 8's ass, excuse the French. And that became my goal, was to show, all right, okay, you didn't want me, well, here, have some of this. So that lit the fire for me to come in and to do crazy stuff. Like I did the Penske Perspective. We had an exclusive with Roger Penske, and I had an exclusive deal with Danica Patrick and AJ Foyt and Mario and Elio Castroneves, and that kind of became my fire, because track is my playground. I grew up at 10th and Girls School, went to Ben Davis. I was doing radio at the track as a high school kid. So that gave me an outlet to go to really show what I could do as a reporter, to do something different other than, here's the score, here's the highlight, here's the final lap. That was always the thing I tried to do.
Let's face it, you went from, again, when you're first around the Speedway at a high point, when you first get Channel 13 a high point, then it goes through a low point, and now we're back to 350,000 souls, and you end up doing a 12-hour marathon on PA. I had a nice normal 5-hour shift on race day. You did not, this past year. But of all the memories that I have of this past race day, it's that nobody left. Everybody stayed. They waited for 4 hours to finish the race, knowing they were going to get home somewhere near midnight, and they didn't care. They want to be part of the show. To kind of see the popularity wane and come back up. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, so when I started on the PA in the 1980s, it was at its zenith. We had so many stars, and it was, qualifications were packed, and everything they did was magic there. And then we had the IndyCar split, and it became, it was still the big event, but it wasn't quite the same. And to see the way it has rocketed back is really fun. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the next couple of years with the new television package. I think it's going to be pretty fascinating and fun, and it's really going to grow some more. It's a great product, and Indianapolis 500 is known around the world. Whenever I'd go to the Olympics, and name some weird region I'd be in, and people knew about the Indianapolis 500. So, it is quite an honor to be the lead guy and to be the maestro guy on race day. Although it's a high wire act, as you know, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
As I tell people, I am the camp quarterback of the Indianapolis 500 PA staff. There is you and Bestwick and Track Dude, and there is me to help give you guys a breath. And I'm perfectly fine with that role that I get to play on that. Dave Calabro, our guest, Greg Rakestraw in for JMV. It's The Ride on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. For this generation of the last two, you are the Calabro they know. But, of course, they hear your brother's voice on NBA TV, NBA radio, etc., and he's pretty darn good at his job, too. What has it been like for the two of you to work in sports and accomplish a dream that both of you had as kids?
Yeah, we grew up a radio geek family. We were all – my middle brother is the voice of the Jeffersonville High School basketball team, by the way.
And they're good this year, by the way, really good.
Everybody in my family's in education except for my oldest brother, Kevin, who's an NBA announcer, and myself. And, yes, we both have had these charmed lives of playing in sports. Sports is the playground. And, we get together, and we also often laugh about what we do for a living, the fact that we get paid to do this. And it's just, it's a charmed life for sure. It's been a lot of fun.
What I want, and again, nature seemingly predestined you guys. Kevin got radio hair. You got television hair. How are follically you guys so different?
I know, isn't that funny? My oldest brother is bald, and I'm like a chia pet. I'm like all those drugs that those hair transplant commercials. Yeah, that's not happening with me. I need a hair slowdown deal. And while we're on the hair topic, let's just be clear. I've never colored my hair. I don't style my hair. I just happen to have good freaking hair. But it'll be under a baseball cap with a beard here soon, by the way.
And that was kind of the next way that I was going. And by the way, if your hair is like Kevin Calabro, Darren Andrews is the way to go. That's the official sponsor, obviously, that JMV has on this program. I know you have loved every minute of doing this. Yeah. Why is it now the right time for you to step away?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just turned 62. I've been doing this since I was 23, right out of college. It's the only thing I've ever done. And I tell people all the time, it's like I've been eating ice cream my whole life. Everybody likes ice cream, don't they? But I've had every flavor and combination and topping and experience you can have in this industry. there's really nothing else for me to do that's going to light my fire to make it even better. And I had a whole another year left on my contract, and I'm like, you know what? It's all good. And I haven't done this to stroke my ego. I haven't done this because I want attention. I got over the whole being noticed at Walmart a long time ago. So I'm now to the point where I just want to do things that I enjoy. I'm going to become a grandfather in the spring. My wife is my college sweetheart. We're best friends. We're going to go travel the world and do some crazy things together. I've got a son that's getting married. So my life is so rich and full away from television that I'm going to do that. I'm still going to do some you'll hear me popping up here and there at various places. I'm working on a couple of different deals to do some voice work here and there. But, I'm just going to slow down and have some fun and enjoy some a slower pace and not having a spotlight on me.
I have never seen you with facial hair like the guy locally that was legendary. I'm taking a break, and I'll come back looking like Forrest Gump after running across the country would be Clyde Lee. He could literally grow one overnight. So how good is your ability to grow a beard?
Oh, I could rock a beard now. Yeah, I could rock a beard. I'm not sure I'm going to be getting expensive haircuts anymore. We'll just see how this plays and see how long my wife lets me look like the wilderness man.
The answer is about 10 days, and then the foot will be dropped down. All right, what does the station have planned for you tonight that you know about at this point?
Well, I don't know. I want to apologize to your listeners. They're probably so sick of hearing about my freaking retirement because I announced it early in the year because I needed to get that pressure off my chest. I didn't realize what it was going to be like, So I apologize if people are sick of hearing about me. I get it. And I'm ready to not hear about me as well. So, yeah, they've got things planned. I know that Jim Harbaugh just sent me a really hilarious video. I hear they did something with my 95-year-old mom. My wife, I think, is doing something. And I recorded a really cool, I think it's cool, a goodbye that's going to air during the 6 o'clock that's got a lot of my favorite moments through the years.
Very cool. The floor is yours now. Anything you would like to tell our listening audience at this point?
Yeah, I just want to, anybody who's ever watched me, thank you. I mean, it's that simple. I've been blessed. God is good, man. And, it just chokes me up.
Dave, what I will say is this, and again, you and I have known each other for the last 30 years and have been friends for a good chunk of that time. We never worked directly together, but we have spent so much time in press boxes and press conferences. And by the way, we've talked for 15 years about playing each other in tennis. For the love of God, we got to get that done now that you don't exactly have a job where you got to worry about. We got to have that epic struggle on the tennis courts. But it's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, not just because it was topical and something cool and a way to fill 20 minutes on the radio. It's because I know you don't like this in terms of people talking about you, but Dave, you so richly deserve this. Again, and you will continue to be through the Speedway and other projects. You have been part of the soundtrack of Indianapolis sports for the last 40 years. And so that is why I am so happy that you made this announcement when you did, so everybody could tell you how they feel. I know there were times you were almost embarrassed going to high school football games this fall because I would see you, because everybody had a gift for you, because that's what Operation Football and what you meant to high school football, let alone the entire sports world. So in closing, I just wanted to say, buddy, you deserve every second of this. So please enjoy this over today and these next few days.
Well, that's heady stuff there, but thank you. And, I'm just humbled and just a West Side dude doing my thing.
And now a West Side dude with a beard coming up in a scene very near you. I will be at the celebration at some point in time tomorrow night. We'll have a celebratory toast. Go enjoy this, my friend, and a hat tip on a heck of a race. Well run, buddy.
Well, appreciate you all, and God bless you all, and Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy Holidays, and go hug your loved ones, all right?
There you go, buddy. Thanks, Dave.
Later.
You got it. Dave Calabro, again, his last appearance on Channel 13 in a full-time basis will be tonight. And there will be some stories and beverages and I'm sure some tears that will be shared tomorrow night. And maybe we'll talk about those at a later date. But what I will say is this, and man, this kind of hits home for me, and I see it as I look at the Hubler Studios web feed that we have going now. The size of my dome has always been large. I am bypassing Peyton Manning 5-head status. We're like at 6-head status as my hairline continues to go back. But it's a strange feeling when you look around the room and there's not that many people that have been in that room as long as you have. God bless Mike Chappell for many reasons. Chappie keeps a lot of us in that Colts media corps feeling young because he's been there since day number one. But with Dave kind of exiting his role on Channel 13, you've got a guy like Anthony Calhoun, 25 years, a guy like Chris Hagan, 25 years. Chris Widlick is not far behind that group. But in a business where longevity is a lot tougher to achieve than it used to be, what Dave has accomplished in his career will be tougher and tougher to do. The fact that I can talk about having a career that is approaching 30 years is mesmerizing to me. And the fact that, I grew up not in Indianapolis, in southern Indiana. So the names that I grew up watching and associating with, guys like Fred Cowgill at Channel 32 in Louisville, Dave Conrad at WHAS in Louisville, Bob Dominy at Channel 3 in Louisville. Well, what those guys were, and Fred Cowgill probably is the corollary from there to here, to have people invite you into their homes on a daily basis for 30 years, kind of like the way that we do on the radio. You invite us into your lives. You invite us into, your cars. I mean, you listen to the show. Yeah, you like the sports conversation. You listen to the show because you feel like JMV is a friend. And I hope, because I've kind of hung around long enough too, you kind of feel the same way about me. So first of all, I appreciate Dave taking the time to have that conversation with me. And I know that Dave is not the biggest fan about talking about himself. A lot of us in this business, and I'll raise my hand, have no problem talking about themselves. All right? It kind of goes part and parcel with the gig. But it is a moment to mark the passage of time to think that Dave Calabro will not be on the airwaves on Channel 13 anymore. By the way, the guy that is right behind him in Dom Miranda is doing a hell of a job and will continue to do a hell of a job. And I talked about interning at Channel 13. You know where Dom Miranda interned at? Right here when I was the program director. Big fan of that kid, even though he's in his 30s. He's going to do great things at Channel 13 if given the opportunity. All right. That's enough of great guests for the show. Go back and listen on the podcast page anytime, 1075thefan.com. Rest of the show is you and me. So I opened the show and we got a boatload of phone calls off the top in terms of talking about if you're a long-suffering IU football fan and just want to revel in the glory of being in the college football playoff, please do. And now that we've gotten done with the Dave Calabro conversation, if you just simply want to share Dave Calabro stories, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. Or because I'm the Colts postgame guy, we can talk Colts. Because I'm the high school sports guy, we can talk high school sports. I've got one little nugget we'll talk about coming up in a matter of moments. I'm also the soccer guy, too. We can talk about those things. All of that and more should easily cover us for the next 30 minutes of the show. It's the Ride Without JMV. Greg Rakestraw filling in, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Just because John isn't here doesn't mean that, well, maybe there's less, commercials about hair and less commercials about weight loss, which is two things I clearly need help with. But there also will still be tickets to given away. So caller number 9 right now at 317-239-1070. You're getting tickets to go see Toto and Christopher Cross, not Chris Cross, completely different act. Christopher Cross, as well as Men at Work. It's at Ruoff Music Center. It is August 6th of 2025. Was just having this conversation with my best good friend Jan Bozier last night. He is a concert file, Jan, who does a lot of the high school broadcasts with me on my Indy TV 23, ISC Sports Network, IHSA Champions Network, etc. He is a big-time concert goer. I am very much more of the sporadic concerts that I go to. Like both John and I made it a point to be at Pearl Jam, so much so that I then caught a flight to Kansas City to an Indy 11 game the very next day when Pearl Jam had their Make Good concert from the previous September. I was thinking, I'm not sure what the next act is going to be that I'm going to go see. Maybe it's this one. I'm sure somebody will now send me like the full Ruoff music. It's still Deer Creek to me, damn it. Calendar coming up at some point in time. But I hit the high points, and I'm mad that I missed what I think might be a last chance to see them here in Red Hot Chili Peppers. I had a schedule change. I remember the date, July 25th, had tickets to go to the show, and I was in Charlotte, and I had a flight that was going to get back a little bit too late for me to actually enjoy the concert, so I gave the stinking tickets away. So there will be a concert for me and Mrs. Straw at some point in time in the near future. Maybe it's that one. I don't know. 317-239-1070. I'm asking James to see if I can put a phone caller on the air while he's talking to a concert winner. I tell you what, in fact, I won't do that. I'll just read a couple of tweets, and then I will get to your telephone calls. From Jim, great interview with Indy sports legend Calabro. So happy for Dave. Reiki put an excellent point on Dave's impact. Hell of a career covering sports on TV. Thank you. From Darnell, great radio with Dave. Dave is an icon. Absolutely, Darnell. Thank you very much. I'll get to Rick's tweet in a matter of moments. Let me get to Mark's telephone call. And we have our winner, so you can stop calling for free tickets. But if you just want to chat me up between now and 6 o'clock, well, you can call anytime. 317-239-1070. Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Great, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. How can I help you?
Well, I want to apologize in advance in a week of an historic IU Notre Dame game and the week of Dave Calabro's retirement. He's an Indiana institution. I'm going to drive away your listeners probably with a soccer topic.
But you are talking to a person that hosts a weekly soccer show, so you clearly called the right person.
That's right. We just had the NCAA soccer championship earlier this week.
With Vermont with a huge win against Marshall. Yes, sir.
Yeah, great finish. Got me curious. I see a lot of Indiana high school soccer and club soccer. Got me curious about how many Indiana kids are playing D1 soccer. So I actually nerded out recently and looked up all the rosters of D1 programs in Indiana and and bordering states. There's about 35 programs, and I counted only about 55 players from Indiana, 10 of those being from one college at University of Southern Indiana.
Yep.
Only 55 players from Indiana on rosters. Foreign players take up a lot of those spots.
Yep.
But there are far more players from Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, and even Kentucky. So with you, Greg Rakestraw, as a guest host today, I had to take this opportunity to get your take on this topic. And I wanted to ask what sparked your interest in soccer.
I tell you what, that is easy. So the World Cup coming the last time in '94 on the men's side was the summer between I was in high school and college. And I just thought it was cool on television. And I get to the University of Indianapolis, and my roommate, Matt Esterman, is a soccer player. And in fact, on our floor of the dorm, which only was about 13, 14 students, because I somehow lucked out of this really swanky apartment or this dorm that had like living rooms on it. We didn't have that too much overcrowding in the dorm. Like half the guys were soccer players. So I started hanging out with soccer players when I was in college. I played tennis at the University of Indianapolis. We had 9 guys on the team. 3 of them were soccer players in the fall and then tennis players in the spring. Started hanging around a bunch of soccer players. And then about 15 years later, as the soccer revolution on television, at least of this era, was happening, where it became much easier to watch Premier League matches on Fox Sports World, Fox Sports Soccer, things like that. Beckham comes to Major League Soccer. I kind of start watching matches again. I leave radio at the time, and I go to a company called Hometown Television. We would use Jerry Baker for a lot of big events. I would kind of be like the number 2 play-by-play guy or the sideline guy. But then on other things, it was like, hey, Rake, you're doing this. Figure it out. So the first soccer match that I broadcast was the 2009 state championship featuring Zionsville, and I think Columbus North was their opponent. Thankfully, I had a buddy of mine doing color, and I go, listen, if I say something dumb, tell me. You know, I think I know enough play-by-play and know the lexicon where I can get by, but if I say something dumb, point it out and correct me on the air. It's okay. I'm a big boy. I can take it. And thankfully, that went well. Little did I know there would be 2 or 3 players playing in that match who I would call their games for the Indy 11 about 5 years later. So that just kind of started me getting the opportunity. And then when the Indy 11 came around, I was one of only a handful of guys locally that did soccer play-by-play. And at the time, I was the program director of 1070 The Fan. And so the relationship with the Indy 11 actually started because I pitched them on the idea of, hey, you should do a weekly show and you should do it on our radio station because, frankly, we'll make you cool by association. This is the home of the Colts. This is the home of the Pacers. This is the home of IU football. This is the home of Butler basketball at the time. This is the home of the Indy 500. You come here, and we will make you cool by association. And, Mark, in 2 weeks, I will start my 12th year of doing that show.
That's awesome.
How about that? So on the college recruiting question, that might be a little bit too far in the weeds for me. What I know is this, I'm talking about youth soccer, you know, the Indy 11 has an academy program that just won another national championship in the USL academy level. And they just had a young man in Logan Neidlinger that they signed from the academy to a first-team contract, and he started a playoff match 6 weeks ago. So there is a great youth development path, whether it's the college route or the professional route here in the state of Indiana currently.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of good players in the area, and it just makes me wonder why these other states get more players at the D1 level and what Indiana soccer needs to do to try to get our players at that level.
The other thing I would say is this: is you've also got this unique situation where a couple of the D1 colleges don't play men's soccer. And that's part of it, too. Right. You know, where Ball State doesn't play, Purdue doesn't play, Indiana State doesn't play because of Title IX issues and scholarship balance and things like that. So it's as is always the case, it's kind of a blend of different things.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thanks for taking my call.
And again, make that phone call when I'm here. That's probably the guy that's the best answer that. To the type of football that is normally talked about on this show. From Rick, when asked the question in terms of what the offseason needs to look like for Anthony Richardson. How about AR work with a quarterback coach to address his deficiencies? Never seen a quarterback overthrow so many passes. His completion percentage is deplorable. Yes, it has to improve. Again, I am a believer, and again, I'll restate this, rephrase this, such as the nature of doing a sports talk show, even a Colts postgame show, knowing that your listening audience listens for a segment or two. Rarely do they listen for the entirety of the 3 hours of the show. So you may have heard this before from me, from this studio, from this chair, either today or earlier this week. I think Anthony Richardson has done enough where you're going to hand him the ball again next year. That is both the progress that he has made, but frankly, the situation that kind of you're in and what the quarterback situation is and market is in terms of free agency and draft class. Am I committing to Anthony long-term? In other words, am I even thinking, having an inkling about sort of a contract extension yet? Absolutely not. But I think he's done enough where you come back. But there are things that have to improve. And we have talked since the day he was drafted about completion percentage and getting it to a certain point. And it's not to that point. There are stretches, there are patches that we see. And again, you go back to those first couple of drives, Every throw is on point. They're converting third downs. They're moving the football, and then that just stops. Has to be a 60-minute game for this entire football team. Of all of the various calls that we had on the postgame show on Sunday, we had a caller that I thought phrased it exceedingly well when he basically said, hey, why is the only guy that seemingly has to take responsibility for a Colt struggle is the 22-year-old kid? And I thought that was absolutely 1,000% correct. Does Anthony Richardson have to be better? Yeah, he does. But Jonathan Taylor has to be better too. And Michael Pittman Jr. has to be better. And anybody playing the tight end position has to be better. And guys along the offensive line has to be better. And the play calling has to be better. It has to be better, period. So, Rick, I guarantee you, playing for a National Football League team, there is not exactly a shortage of resources that players can use to develop during the course of the offseason. And yes, even with me saying, I think Anthony will be back, and I think Anthony should be back, are there things that from year 2 to year 3 have to improve for him to be the starter going into year number 4? I absolutely agree with that. But I think he's the guy that gets the football in 2025. That may not make you feel all warm and fuzzy. I get that. But I think that's what you're going to see. 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. Hit me up on Twitter, at Greg Rakestraw. YouTube chat works as well. One more segment of Substitute Teaching. John is back tomorrow. And with that, there is much rejoicing. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
We have the holy hand grenade.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Right.
1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
5 is right out, much as I will be about 5 minutes from now. Thank you, James, for making my job easy. John is back tomorrow. Bill has been on hold. Let's remedy that now. We still got time for a couple, 3 calls. If you want, 317-239-1070. Hello, Bill.
Rick, how you doing today?
I'm good, buddy.
I'm saying that IU is going to run for over 150 yards against Notre Dame on Friday night.
Hope so.
There's no way that Notre Dame's front seven can stop Ellison. It's just not going to be done. Notre Dame is 51st in the country against the run, even though they've got a great pass defense. This is all going to be about running the ball on Friday. Secondly, I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Your thoughts?
I am not as hell-bent on this topic as John is. I have zero problem whether it's a Christmas movie or not. I just know it's a damn good movie, period, Bill, and that's good enough for me.
I'll take that one as an actual movie, and the best animated Christmas movie still since the 60s is Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol.
You know, I got to say, and Bill, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate you. Thanks for dialing us up. I get in the Christmas spirit every year, and because of many reasons, I get to do a bowl game every year. Now, you may go, wait a minute, you do a bowl game? Yeah. You know, there are bowl games that happen outside of Division I. Yes, there are. There is a Division II bowl game that happens in this state every year. I did it not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before up in Hobart. I know John's not in love with that region of the state. I have no problem with the region, nor Northwest Indiana. They invite me up every year to do this bowl game. And the reason I bring this story up, you know, a Christmas story is based in Northwestern Indiana. The creator of the movie, I think, grew up in Whiting, I think. I'm going to make sure I get the town proper here. The reason I bring this up is that because of leaning into those Northwestern Indiana roots, the leg lamp from the Christmas story is the trophy between the two leagues that play in that bowl game every year. And so I've been doing this now for the last 5 years, and was hearing another person that I know opine about social media clicks. Maybe I know a thing or two about that as well. Because I take a picture, put it on Facebook every year, and Facebook goes bonkers because of that leg lamp. And every year I make a point about Fragile. It's Italian. And there's like an intern or communication director for the league says, hey, I've got pictures with the trophies. I'm like, don't need them. Just need the lamp. The football field's in the background. Everybody will get it. And Facebook is aglow for like 3 days because the leg lamp is on display. That kind of starts my holiday season every year. And I know I'm getting middle-aged, you know, because of Scott Agnes and I agreeing earlier on those courts are just god-awful. Please change that for the NBA Cup. But that I am that person that goes, man, the holiday season's flying. I can't believe we're 7 days until Christmas. I'm kind of done working for the day in like 3 minutes. In my mind, it's like 6 days until Christmas since I'm done doing anything constructive for the remainder of the day. News and notes before we exit stage left. Colts practice report is out. Mo Cox did not practice. Ashton Dula did not practice. Matt Gay did not practice. Laiatu Latu out with an illness. Alec Pierce with a concussion. And again, if you don't practice on Wednesday, that does not bode well for playing on Sunday. Michael Pittman Jr. did not practice. Obviously, he has been minimally practicing for several weeks at this point. EJ Speed did not practice. Juju Brents limited. Jalen Carlisle, Tyquan Lewis, and Ryan Kelly a full go. So with Kelly being a full go today, I would expect that would mean that you will see him playing on Sunday. The other thing I wanted to make sure I got to in the program today, congratulations to Indiana Mr. Football Mark Zachary from Ben Davis High School. This was kind of a unique year in terms of, it was a great year of high school football, and I had a great 6A state championship game. But the teams that played deep into the tournament were more about kind of the team than, say, an individual star. The Ringer kid from East Central was such an easy pick as Mr. Football last year, now playing at Miami, Ohio from East Central because he had racked up these gargantuan touchdown numbers. We didn't have that as much this year, but who is the best player that is an NFL prospect in this state? It's that kid in Mark Zachary. Congratulations to him. Looking forward to that thumb healing so I see him on a basketball court in the very near future. You can next catch me Friday night, my Indy TV. You're going to be the one person not watching IU Notre Dame. I have Ben Davis and Warren Central at 7:30 on Friday night. Be sure to tune in during the commercial breaks or something like that. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm back on these airwaves for Soccer Saturday morning, and for Colts postgame on Sunday afternoon. John is back tomorrow. Thanks to our great guest, Dave Calabro. Love you, buddy. Hat tip. Job well done. Thanks for listening. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.